All right, so I woke up this morning and there was a puddle of water on my bathroom floor, which is never a good thing. I figured out that the leak is coming from this supply valve, and it might also be coming from this line right here that connected to it. And so you can kind of see how some of the rubber there is damaged. And so I don't really think it's getting a proper seal. I'm just going to replace these supply lines, and then I'm also going to be replacing both of these supply valves here, this one and this one. And so all I did there was just turn the water main off, and then I unscrewed it. I'm going to take this to the store and get a new one, and we will come back and install a new one on both sides just in case the same thing happens to this side again. I have a little bit of damage here to my baseboards, so I'm going to take all this, paint that's kind of peeling off, and I got to scrape that off, and I'm going to let it dry, and then I will repaint it after sanding it. So I should be able to salvage it. I caught it early, but definitely not something that you want to wake up to in the morning. So let's get it fixed. We're going to find the aisle that says shut-off valves and supply lines, and then down here we can see supply lines and valves, and then we are going to pick out what we need. We're going to grab some thread seal tape. I'm going to switch to the quarter turn valve, and in my case I have 3/8 inch female iron pipe to the 3/8 inch compression. I still had the tag on my old supply line, and so I need a 3/8 inch compression to the 1/2 inch female iron pipe, and this was a 20 inch. And so we can find that right here. Just to make sure, we connect the new valve to the new line here, and it's looking really good. It's time to install the new shutoff valve here. Now before we screw it on, we want to remove any old Teflon tape and put on the new thread tape. But when we do that, we want to put it on in a clockwise direction so that way it's not loosened as we try to tighten this new valve on there. It will actually help then the thread tape as we screw it on, as long as we have that thread tape clockwise. When tightening this new valve on here, I tightened it to the point where I felt a decent amount of resistance by hand, and then I took a wrench and tightened it the rest of the way until it was facing up in the direction that I wanted it to. We don't want to tighten it too much because we want to potentially be able to service it in the future, and we don't want to cause any damage, but we want to make sure it's tight enough so that it doesn't leak. So I did the same thing to the other side here, and now we are going to hook up the supply line. As we tighten this supply line on here, it will compress that rubber so that it won't leak. Now that the supply lines are connected to the valves, we will get the sink back in place, and then the last connection is between the supply lines and the faucet. Okay, so we have the drain hooked back up, and we have our two new quarter turn supply valves and our two new supply lines hooked up and screwed onto the faucet at both locations. I probably didn't need to go with the 20 inch. I could have gotten away with less, but I just got whatever they had before, so it works okay. It's all right if there's a little bit of a bend in the line. And so I think we're ready to turn the water main back on and see if this thing leaks. We'll make sure that both of these valves are in the off position to start off with. Notice how the supply line for the toilet is very similar. It just has a different connection up here where it meets the tank. These are the supply lines to the kitchen sink, so notice how those are fairly similar as well. And then here's my water main right here, and so we'll turn that back on, and then we'll go up and check to see what's going on. All right, so let me turn this valve on. So there is full water pressure now coming into this valve, and it's being stopped because it's in the off position. It looks like our connection with the tape is doing quite well, and so we will turn this. And so now this line is pressurized all the way up to the sink, and we will look for any drips, and we'll turn the sink on and make sure it works, and we should be in good shape. Actually, so after I turned this valve on, I do see dripping, and so it doesn't seem to be coming from any of the new connections. It actually seems to be coming from this connection to the faucet here, and so we'll figure out exactly what we need to do to stop that leak there. So I unscrewed and took out this piece as well as this, which was just kind of holding this onto the top here. You can see where that was threaded on. I was able to get that loose. I hooked it back up, and let's see if we can find the leak. You can see the little leak in the hose. It's spraying out there. And so I basically have it hooked up again, and I wanted to spot where the leak was. So I brought this into the store, and they said that they don't really sell these supply lines here that attach right in there, and I could contact the manufacturer potentially, but at this point I'm just going to get a new faucet. And so you could definitely try to repair that hose if you have the same issue by getting a new one, maybe by contacting the manufacturer. You can kind of see that this is a very similar one, which is brand new, but we're probably actually going to go with this one over here. And so we kind of like the waterfall design, but you see how this is a little bit more curved, which is good. We ran into an issue with this being flat where the water would run down and just leave a whole bunch of mineral deposits on there. So we would rather go with this one. We think it'll drain a little bit better into the sink, and it's a little cheaper. Not only does it have that nice curve to help with the water backtracking, but it also has this solid copper piping down here, which I like a lot better compared to that braided stuff, which is what the source of the leak was. All right, so this old one just kind of pops loose now. And definitely looking a little gross. What I'll use at first here is like a little plastic razor blade, and so we'll just kind of get all this loose stuff up. So I did pretty good. I'm also going to spray it with some lime away, let it soak a little bit, and then scrub it. Now it basically looks brand new here, which is wonderful. We'll just feed this new one down through this hole. So then this plate goes on the bottom, and then it gets tightened up by this nut, and they give you a little bit of a tool. So we'll get that on from underneath. It'll suck this down nice and tight. So the drain tightens up from the bottom here, and you have this little lever to raise and lower the seal. I'm actually just going to keep the old one in here for now, but eventually I will put the new one in that came with it. So it's all about getting the right spot on here and tightening it, and then putting it through the correct hole here with this little metal clasp, so that as you lift up on here, it will raise and lower that lever. So our last step is to hook up our new supply lines to the new faucet with the cold and the hot in the correct spot. All right, so let's test it out. We have two brand new quarter turn supply valves going into two brand new supply lines going into a brand new faucet. So we basically went through pretty much everywhere where there could be a leak. And so let's turn on our water and hope for the best. This really wasn't giving us any issues before. Hopefully that's good. This was really the one that was the problem. All right, that's pressurized now, and we'll see how we did here. All right, seems to be working good. The leak should be fixed. Everything is new, so I'll keep an eye on it. But that is how you fix a leak in your sink in terms of the supply. If you have a leak in the drain, then it's only going to be leaking as it's draining. So that's a little bit easier. And a lot of times that might be due to a loose connection or seal down here. But really what we went through today is, any leaks coming from basically the main water supply to this faucet. So hopefully that helped. And if it did, smash that like button, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos like this. We'll see you in the next one.